Hi everyone, it's Mark here, and it's the middle of October here on the west coast of Canada in Zone 8A, and as you can see from my squinting eyes, it's a little bit sunny out here, so it's kind of nice having a nice sunny day instead of just cloudy, rainy, wet days that we normally have in fall, winter, and early spring. So I thought, it's sunny, why not do a urban homestead tour? So I'm going to do a tour of Tranquil Urban Homestead and show you what's still growing in the garden. It's amazing because we still have some fruit, we have an abundance of veggies still growing, and I hope this kind of inspires you to try growing into the fall months if you can in your climate as well. So let's get on the tour. My raspberries are still doing well, actually. Even into the middle of October, you can see we've got actually quite a few. We probably should pick them. We usually try to make sure we pick them before we get rain because they tend to get moldy, at least the ones that are getting ripe. And we're still eating them on our cereal and enjoying the last little bit of the summer fruit. Things that I actually really enjoy growing are roses, and while roses can sometimes have the reputation of being hard to care for, and you might also wonder, why are they in a food garden? Well, obviously just for nice flowers, but the other thing you can do is you can also dry the petals and make rose tea, which is really nice fresh rose tea. So the turnip patch is doing quite well. There's a little bit of insect damage on the leaves, and some of the roots also have a little bit of damage, but you can see that they're growing quite well. We've already had a few dinners with them, and some are growing quite close together, as you can see there and also here, and that's because I multi-sowed them in the late summer, and in a lot of cases both seeds actually sprouted, so that's pretty good. So we've got some more greens as well that we can harvest. Beside it is this sorry looking Marigold, but it's doing quite well still with some blossoms, and it'll just die off when we have the first hard frost. And beside that are the cabbages, and they're doing quite well. We've got different sizes based on how they've been growing. This one's probably the best one. You can see it's developing quite nicely into a big head. Lots of leaves around it. And we've also got some broad beans, but as you can see as I get closer, there's quite a bit of aphid damage, and that's normal for broad beans. We'll probably just lop off the top, and then we'll see what we get in spring in terms of actual beans once the weather warms up in springtime. Here is my kale. It's also doing well. It's what I always try to grow in wintertime because it grows so well, is frost tolerant. We've also got some broccoli, which for some reason is bolting, so we'll need to cut that off. We've got a few others over here, and you can see that there's some little side sprouts coming as well. So if we cut off the top one, we can harvest the side sprouts for at least the next month or so. And one of the problems with having apples is that they fall down. I'll show you the tree in a sec. We've got a few lettuces here that are left over from the summer that bolted. Yes, here's the apple tree. So there's a few apples on here that have various different bits of damage on them. Those will just go on the compost. But then we've got others like this one that is developing nicely, and we'll be picking them soon for storage and enjoyment in the next few months. And going back to this patch underneath the tree, we have, I think, some pak choi there, and we've got spinach as well, and that's kind of held over from the summer. This one's doing really well, so we can harvest some spinach leaves soon. And then we also have some sui choi, which is the Chinese cabbage or Napa cabbage. It's again having the same problem it has most of the time, where it doesn't actually make a head. So I may have to try a different variety or try a different time of year to sow them. Not really sure why they're not heading. And then we've got also our Swiss chard patch. And as you can see, we've got different colors. We've got especially these bright red and yellow ones. I'll try to get in a little bit closer so you can see. But the colors are just amazing. Yeah, let's see, get in a little bit closer. There we go. It's not always that easy. But as you can see, beautiful colors and beautiful leaves as well. And some leaves have a bit of damage like this one. That's okay. We can just take them off and new leaves will grow, and we'll get probably a fairly decent chard harvest still this fall and into winter. And my daughter doesn't like Swiss chard, so it'll have to be something we try to hide, maybe in pasta. So here are the beans, the leftover pole beans. As you can see, they're in a pretty sad state. We do still have a few on there. I think this one here is, yeah, this one here is pretty soft. Nothing inside, but there's a few others here and there that are still hanging on. Still growing a little bit. We even have one blossom here, which is kind of amazing. It's trying to still bloom and put on more beans. And then these beans are also ones that are still there. We can probably pick them and still eat them. But the plant itself is pretty well done. And my bush bean crop, it's almost done as well. You can still see a few here and there that can be picked, like this yellow one especially, looking pretty good. But I think these ones are pretty well on their last legs. And then I've got green onions here, a Japanese variety. This green onion seems to be infected with a bit of rust, which is fine. We can just remove those spheres, and then we have the other ones that are not affected by the rust that we can actually eat. The peas that I sowed in the late summer are also doing really well, lots of blossoms. So we're looking forward to harvesting some fresh peas and making a nice maybe pea soup with them on a cold fall day. And we also have some parsnip here, some more broccoli, and I believe in the back I might even have, I think, cauliflower. Not sure, I'll have to check the tag on that one. We've also got our carrot patch. These ones are still kind of babies and they're still growing. And then we've got the other patch here in the back, along with some weeds, unfortunately. We've got some that we're currently harvesting and using, and the smell of these homegrown carrots is just amazing. It's amazing the smell and the taste that they have compared to what you'd get in the store, even organic carrots. And over here we've got our beets, and these are growing like crazy. Lots of beet greens. The actual roots underneath are slower to develop, but hopefully we can eat more greens. And over here we also have daikon radish, and these guys were planted late in the summer. This is a good time for them to grow so that they don't bolt, and you can see that a root is starting to develop there, which hopefully in the next month or so may be big enough to harvest. We'll have to see. We've got some strawberries here that are showing their fall colors with some red leaves and some dead leaves too that we need to get rid of, but the red leaves are always nice to have in the garden. And we've got our Bonnie Best tomatoes, which are outside. They luckily haven't been affected by blight yet. I'm kind of crossing my fingers they don't. Some are ripening, like this one right here, and as you can see, they're pretty big size too. So we've already harvested a bunch of them that are growing elsewhere in the garden. There is a little bit of damage that probably this one here we probably need to put on the compost. It may not be edible. We'll see. We'll give it a little bit more time to ripen. And so anyways, this is Bonnie Best. They're doing quite well. They're fairly intensively planted, which I wouldn't suggest, but I had extra plants left over and I just threw them literally into the ground. And then this is the empty bed, which I just harvested my kabocha squash from in last week's video. It's obviously now sitting bare and empty, but I'm now planning on maybe planting some greens or something in there and then putting plastic or a row cover over top to hopefully have more harvests in wintertime as well of fresh greens. And then we've also got our dill plant kind of hanging on here. It's got lots of seeds, but again, it's pretty well almost done. We can harvest the seeds at least and use them next year. And I forgot to mention the celery plant, which is growing in a 5-gallon bucket. I've got another one like this one, and we've been picking some leaves off as we need them. And then we've got our peas in a bucket, 5-gallon bucket. Another way to grow peas, if you don't have space, we need to sometimes maybe give them a hand crawling onto the bamboo trellis here. But essentially, this is a great way for renters, especially if you're in an apartment, just have a balcony, or if you're a renter of a house or a suite and you can't plant in the ground, a few of these 5-gallon buckets planted up with peas or the celery that you saw earlier is a great idea. And over here I've got some strawberries in planters ready for hopefully next summer, early summer, a beautiful harvest of juicy strawberries. And behind those, in this little plot, I've got my yams. They haven't been growing much this year. I just threw store-bought yams basically into the ground. But you can see there are some yams there, so we'll have to harvest and see what's happening with them. And the slips I'll probably try to keep and put into the greenhouse over winter, and then we can hopefully plant them out in the summer again and have a better harvest of yams. We'll have to dig them out, and I'll do a video on that and see what kind of yams we actually have. And I wanted to show you this bin. This bin is basically potatoes. I already harvested a bunch of potatoes out earlier in sort of late summer, and what I did is the potatoes that weren't that great I actually threw back into the bin. Something to note is that these bins were really cheap, and as you can see they're falling apart mainly from UV exposure. So if you want to use bins for growing veggies and fruit in, you may want to consider getting the stronger variety. Usually Rubbermaid ones are fairly tough and will stand up better in the outdoors. And then we have our sunflowers here as well. Sunflowers are still hanging on. They're still brightening up the space with some beautiful yellow summer color. And as you can see, we've got some seeds as well, which we're trying to store. And I'm planning to do a video on how to grow them as microgreens indoors in winter. And then we've got our grape tomatoes here, and these ones are still producing, although they're kind of slowing down now. We've got, various different colors here as they're ripening, and we've been harvesting quite a few, which is good because the seeds were not cheap. So we've got another plant here as well, and you can see that they're slowly starting to ripen, but eventually we'll probably have to pick all of them before the first frost. And then this bed, this 1x4 planter actually, The tomatoes in here are pretty well done. These are Bonnie Best as well, but you can see that they are having some issues, and so I think there's going to be some that we just have to compost. There's a few others that are still in good shape that we'll probably be able to harvest and maybe let ripen indoors. And then there's green onions as well, and those are doing really well. We can harvest those in winter for miso soup and stir fries and such. And there's also some celery that are growing into this planter. And then we've got zucchini. Yes, in middle of October we still have zucchini. These planters are located just in front of my greenhouse. They seem to be fairly protected, and while the plants don't look that great, there are zucchini on them. And there's a few zucchini on here that don't look that great, like this little guy here that has some damage. We'll have to get rid of that one. But otherwise, the other ones, pretty well, give them maybe another week or so and we can pick them. You can see the leaves are not that great. We got mildew on a lot of them, and that doesn't seem to affect the plant too much. We do have new leaves coming, so the mildewed leaves we could actually just chop off and see how long this plant will keep producing. I'm not going to show you a tour of the greenhouse at this point. This will be a separate shorts video that I'll do of a quick 1-minute greenhouse tour and show you what's still growing inside the greenhouse. And I'll probably do some other videos on how I use my greenhouse later. So I hope you enjoyed the tour. As you can see, we've got still quite a bit growing in the garden, and we're pretty happy that we can continue to eat healthy, fresh, homegrown food into the fall months and even into the winter months. Well, I hope that has given you some inspiration, maybe some ideas of what you can try to grow next fall. So if you like tours like this, be sure to hit the like button down below, ask any questions you have about my urban homestead, and also don't forget to consider subscribing and then hitting the bell notification to get notified of any future videos as they come out. So thanks again for watching, and take care.